Hi guys, and welcome back to My Dank Dog. This is my final episode of my Bruce Banner clone growing in a 16-ounce solo cup. Also guys, I've still got my anniversary giveaway going on. I'll be picking the winner on the 7th of February, so check out the details below. You still have time to enter. Let's get into it. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you to Vivosun for sponsoring the channel. And if you guys are in the market for a VGrow, you can save 20% off at vivosun.com and amazon.com using my promo code MDDVGrow. That's MDDVGrow, valid until February the 28th, 2025. Also guys, if you're just generally in the market for some Vivosun gear, you can save 15% off at vivosun.com with my promo code MyDankDog, and that's 15% off site-wide, no minimum purchase with my code MyDankDog. Okay, let's rewind back to August. I had basically just finished trimming a Bruce Banner photo period that was growing in a 5-gallon pot, and a lot of you guys suggested that I try to do a clone, so I did. January 6th, which is 5 months later, over 20 weeks later, this is what she looked like. She was fantastic. Now, I did a lot of experiments on this plant. I created a self-wicking, self-watering pot, as you can see here, that worked out really well. Because cup grows they're a pain in the bum, basically, and they're very needy. So I kind of use them as experiments, and they teach me a lot. So I built my own scaffolding. I experimented with grow clips and wires, and basically just didn't really kind of care whether it worked or did not work. I just wanted to do experiments on it, but she turned out to be quite a nice plant. Her mum was over 10 ounces, really thick, massive buds. When this clone re-vegged and I reflipped her, she grew kind of like small, chunky nugs like this. They're very, very, very sugary when you get into them and see, but not huge nugs at all, just very kind of little cute ones. Now, she's a good looking plant. I have had my problems with her. Her mum was on Gaia Green and much more of an organic kind of growth. This is basically been growing with advanced nutrients, pH perfect. So there's a little bit of crispy ends there, but realistically, she hasn't been that hard to grow. Photo periods are a lot more forgiving than auto flowers. So I think if I'm going to do another cup grow, I'll probably lean towards a photo period, just because you have more time to mess around with them, more time to kind of like adjust your nutrients, more time to just kind of just train and generally play around with it. But this is my first clone, and as you can see, she came out really, really, really nice. She doesn't smell like her mum. She doesn't look like her mum. She hasn't been fed the same as her mum, so I can imagine that the differences are based on lots of different things. And obviously she's been growing in a small 16-ounce cup, and her mum grew in a large fabric 5-gallon pot. So there's a lot of differences there, but I can tell you that she smells great. She looks great, and I'm about to chop her down. I don't think she's going to be a huge yield, but I don't really care. It's a successful grow for me. Obviously it's my first clone grow. And it was super simple to grow this, actually. It was basically a clipping. I put the clipping in water until it formed roots. And I did a bunch of clippings. I can't actually remember how many I did, but I'd say maybe 6 or 7 were successful. And this is the one that I managed to keep. I actually threw some away because I didn't want so many clones. I always feel guilty when I come to snipping these plants, but it's got to be done. There you go. She's snipped. And these scaffolding poles that I've been using are going to keep her up anyway, so you can see my makeshift engineering, and this scaffolding actually turned out pretty good. I actually prefer to use this scaffolding or these poles like this because it still allows me to move the plant around, take it out of the tent and take photographs of it, or also do videos like this as well. So I'm actually not a fan of trellis nets. I like to be able to take the plants out, move them around and play with them basically. Take a look at this wicking kind of fabric that I used here. It was actually from Canadian Tire, and it's for a lamp, but it turned out pretty well. If I was to do this again, I'm probably going to use an opaque cup for the liquid nutrients just to try and avoid that algae, although everybody said that the algae is not an issue and that a plant will actually eat the algae if it's lacking nutrients. The roots, they're pretty healthy too. As you can see, I've had way worse roots where it's root bound, but this still seems pretty good. And I think that the self-watering wicking system is definitely something I'm going to incorporate into future grow cups. But I also think I'm going to try and do like a mini kind of DWC grow where I have maybe the shoot or the clone or the plant in a rockwool or stonewool cube in some kind of cage and grow it over the nutrients that way. So maybe I'll do a grow off against each other, a self-wicking kind of fabric strip and a grow cube kind of DWC setup. Okay, so basically I'm going to give her a light trim. There's a lot of sugar on these leaves, so I don't really want to lose a lot of them. So I'm just going to basically trim off the crispy end bits and keep it really kind of like a slight trim, because all of these little leaves here have got a lot of trichomes on there and I don't want to lose those. So basically I'm going to dry it like this. We're going to give it away just before I dry it, but as you can see, she's nice. They're not huge buds, but they're decent size. They're pretty good, but nowhere near the size of the monster buds her mom had. They were huge. I'm just going to zero this and take a quick weight of her, wet weight with her stalks, and then we're going to dry her out. I'm going to do a little bit of an experiment with her. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a half dry with stalks, take her down, cut the buds off, and then dry the buds out further without the stalks. We've got 159.3 grams, so maybe I'll get an OZ out of this. I don't really care about the yield. I'm just trying to up my game on the drying and curing. So she's my experiment the whole way through. She was an experiment for a clone. She was an experiment for the scaffolding. She was an experiment for the self-wicking cup. So I'm just going to hang her up in the VGrow and put the drying schedule on for a few days, 3 days. Then I'm going to take her down, snip the buds off, reweigh her, and put her back in a different manner for another couple of days, just to see if that helps the way that I dry these plants out. I'm just trying to kind of experiment the whole way through this plant. This is 3 days later, and as you can see, the size and the mass of these buds has gone down, but the stalks have still got some moisture in there. If you actually bend them, you can see that they don't snap, they're still bending, so there's still a bit of moisture to dry out. When you take a closer look, you can see just how much sugar is on these leaves. So this is why I didn't want to chop all of these leaves off, because I want to kind of capture that. Whether it's going to be keef, I don't know, but I didn't want to kind of just trim all of these leaves off and lose it. So after I trimmed her off her stalks, she came in at 36.4, but she still probably has another 2 days to dry. I'm going to dry her out for another 2 days inside the VGrow, but this time I'm going to put some cheesecloth on top of the trellis like this, and then I'm going to put the buds on top of the cheesecloth and put the VGrow on the dry cycle again for another 2 days. So as you can see, I've kind of really laid her out flat on the top here so she's not hanging from the stalk. So it's like a bit of an experiment for me. After another 2 days drying in the VGrow on the cheesecloth, you can see she looks pretty good. There's a lot of sugar on these leaves, so really interested to see what she tastes like. But yeah, I'm really happy with this. Obviously, I need to up my game with the trimming and the drying and the curing process. So all of this is a bit of an experiment for me. I'd rather experiment on a small cup grow kind of yield like this rather than a bigger yield or a bigger plant, or kind of separate it out. And it seems weird, but basically cup grows don't seem as valuable to me as the larger grows. So I don't mind if I mess up on them, but because you have that attitude, it's a really great way of kind of learning how to apply all of this to a larger grow. But she's looking great. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. I'm probably going to do a bunch of different things with that. I can tell you that I'm not going to use cheesecloth in the future because it's very hard to get these buds off it. It's very stringy. Maybe I'll use a tighter weave cheesecloth if I do this again, but let's give her a quick weigh out. She's probably going to be at least 2, 3, 4 grams lighter, I would imagine. She still had some moisture in those stalks, so I can't imagine she's going to be the same weight after another 2 days drying, and she came in at 33.2, so she lost another 3.2 grams, which is no surprise. I'm probably going to largely use her for making edibles. I love doing these experiments, so I think I'll probably obviously smoke a little bit, but definitely not going to be using cheesecloth like this in future. That was a pain in the ass. I'll cure her for probably 4 to 6 weeks, and then as that time is going past, I'll decide what I'm going to do with her. So she'll be placed in this mason jar with 2 of these humidity packs. Now, these are 62% and they're for 8 grams. I'm going to use 2 of them, which is for 16 grams, but I'm sure that's going to be fine because I'm going to be using all of this in about 4 to 6 weeks anyway. So we'll check back on her every couple of weeks and give her a burp if necessary. But one quick look at her before she goes away and she looks pretty good. So I'm probably going to be using a lot of it for butter, at least. I'll be using this extraction machine, this herbal extraction and decarboxylation machine from Vivosun. I haven't used it yet, so stay tuned. It's probably going to be another 2 to 3 weeks by the time she's finished curing, but I'm definitely going to be using her to experiment with infusions, maybe some vodka infusions, some butter, some cooking, and I'll be using this machine from Vivosun to do all the extraction and decarboxylation too. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for all the likes, all the comments. I do appreciate it. And thanks to Vivosun for sponsoring the channel. Bye bye.